world as we know it is under siege. The perpetrators, an army of bloodless, boneless phantoms from the deep, billions strong and growing. They're wreaking havoc on our infrastructure. Destroying our food supply. And turning our beaches into battle zones.
They were all over the place.
She was stung on her chest, her back, her stomach, her face.
I think it's crazy. I've never seen anything like this.
The invasion is upon us. And this is only the beginning. The coastal waters near Key West, Florida.
Open the dive surface valve. Breathe in through your mouth and out through your nose.
Combat divers with the U.S. Special Forces are heading out on a routine training dive.
4 more seconds.
It's an exercise these soldiers have completed many times before.
Prepare to enter the water.
Ready, set, go.
But on this night, things will go terribly wrong. There's something deadly lurking in the deep.
So I'm just going to talk to you. My partner and I were swimming into the beach. Once we got roughly 500 meters from the shore is when I felt the sting. I kind of stopped and swept at it. We surfaced.
You all right, dude?
No. I told my partner, you know, just to keep an eye on me because I was starting to feel a little off. Once we got to shore, I started losing control of my own body.
What's going on? Talk to me.
Sergeant First Class William C. Plagg, Jr.
Hey, talk to me. What happened? Where does it hurt?
When I arrived, he started having difficulty breathing.
It's starting to hurt everywhere, dive suit. Just my
lower
arms
back,
and
your
legs.
chest,
It was definitely not a dive injury.
I started to panic. I didn't know what was going on with me.
Can you breathe?
It was something that was indicative of dangerous marine life.
Hey, give me the ambulance over here. Talk to me. Where are the cramps at?
Transported him back to the aid station very quickly.
Breathe normally.
Medics have seen this dangerous cluster of symptoms before. It's normally associated with jellyfish encounters thousands of miles away in Australian waters. They call it Irukandji syndrome.
Excruciating, crushing, backbreaking pain.
Opiates at maximum doses are not enough.
Probably 10 to 15 minutes after the initial sting, and that's when the pain really started to hit.
Let's get an IV on. And let's go ahead and do Valium and fentanyl. Let's go ahead and control the symptoms.
Survivors say it's one of the most excruciating experiences a human can endure.
4 liter wide open. Is it any better after the fentanyl and the Valium? Has it backed off a little? No?
I don't remember much. Everything's kind of fuzzy. I remember in incredible amounts of pain.
Captain Jason Smith, I'm the diving medical officer here. The classic presentation is low back pain, then shortly radiates to the abdomen, sometimes can go down into the groin itself, followed by agitation, nausea, vomiting, and a feeling of impending doom.
The debilitating symptoms can linger for months.
Up to a month and a half out, I was still having trouble.
It's the worst case of Irukandji syndrome the unit has ever seen, but it isn't the first.
We've had a string of about 7 over the last 2 years, where they're all night stings and present almost the exact same way.
Exactly what's taking down our soldiers, nobody knows for sure. Jellyfish have been around for 600 million years. Of an estimated 30,000 species pulsing through our oceans today, most are venomous. And jellyfish can cause mass mayhem in other ways. December 10th, 1999. Manila, the Philippines. It's Christmas time, and people are in a festive mood. Until a population of 40 million is suddenly plunged into total darkness. The 10-hour-long blackout cripples the capital of Manila and sparks rumors of a military coup or terrorist attack. The next day, the real culprit is revealed. A gigantic swarm of jellyfish, enough to fill 50 large dump trucks, sucked into the power plant's cooling pipes. And the blows keep coming. Around the globe, jellyfish populations are exploding, and they're becoming a very real threat to anyone or anything operating in the water. In 2005, an army of these gelatinous invaders suddenly shuts down a nuclear reactor in Sweden. In 2006, a swarm of jellyfish hits one of the largest aircraft carriers in the world, the USS Ronald Reagan. Clogging its condensers, the jellies partially disabled the ship's operations. Not only are jellyfish taking over our oceans, freshwater species have invaded all but 5 U.S. states. They have even advanced into man-made habitats. This island quarry is infested with thousands of mastiges, a species normally found in the southern Pacific Ocean. Dr. Monty Graham is a marine scientist from the Dauphin Island Sea Lab in Alabama. For him, the mastiges in this man-made quarry are more evidence of what jellyfish are capable of.
So what we have here in this quarry is one of evolution's great success stories. The jellies, they have evolved over 600 million years. They're widely considered some of the first animals to be free swimming in the sea. And they're able to survive and thrive in even the most hostile marine environments.
Jellyfish have been known to travel around the world in ships' ballasts. But how a species from the southern Pacific came to this landlocked Florida quarry remains a mystery. What's even more puzzling is how they've managed to thrive in this habitat. The mastiges have mastered the ultimate challenge. They survive in this man-made environment without the need of an external food source.
These animals live off algae they harvest inside their body. It's this unique relationship that allows these jellyfish to take advantage of this particular environment. They just need to make sure the algae get enough sunlight. And that's why they all swim upside down, resting on the bottom like gardeners, collecting the sunlight.
It's just one of this animal's extreme survival tactics. And where humans and jellyfish interact, the jellyfish are coming out ahead. It's the world's longest animal, with tentacles stretching up to 120 feet. Lion's mane jellyfish normally roam the Arctic, the northern Atlantic, and the northern Pacific Oceans. And when they come in contact with humans, a single specimen can cause massive damage. July 21st, 2010. A 50-pound lion's mane turns the shallow waters of Rye Beach, New Hampshire, into a stinging soup.
The jellyfish was first spotted just off that jetty, and at first, lifeguards thought it was just a log.
150 people suffer the jelly's wrath.
My daughter was screaming. We were trying to figure out what was wrong with her.
She was stung on her chest, her back, her stomach, her face.
Victims are taken to the hospital.
Park staffers will be on the lookout just in case the jelly has any friends, but the beach will be open tomorrow. In Rye, New Hampshire, I'm Mary Salat in News Center 5.
Jellyfish encounters are on the rise around the world.
10-year-old Rachel Shardlow was tangled in the jellyfish tentacles.
These are the marks the box jellyfish left on Rachel Shardlow's leg.
A jellyfish that brought a painful end to
injuries on her arms and legs.
And now a new threat has arrived in U.S. coastal waters. New Smyrna Beach, Florida. Dozens of surfers greet the morning waves and get a painful surprise.
My whole arm swelled. You can definitely see fluid hanging out of the elbow, you know. And each one of these had blisters on them and raised about that much off the skin.
Extreme pain. It's being shot with a gun, you know, hit with a blowtorch or something.
Their attackers are later identified as box jellyfish.
Beach Patrol officers who've worked this area for 25 years told me today they've never seen a box jellyfish in this area before.
Not normally found in Florida, box jellies are the world's most venomous jellyfish. They are suspected to be responsible for countless drowning deaths around the globe. And if what they're already doing in Hawaii is any indication of things to come, we all have reason to be very afraid. The Hawaiian Islands. Tourists from around the world are drawn to the pristine beaches and crystal waters. But there's trouble in paradise. The threat? An invader no bigger than the palm of a man's hand. July 1997. It's in the early morning hours when Angel Yanagihara goes out for a swim that is nearly her last.
It was about 6 a.m. and I was coming in, and suddenly I got hit by something all on the neck. And I thought, oh my God, what is this?
Tentacles reach around her arms and legs, unleashing a barrage of stinging cells. Microscopic harpoons blast into her skin faster than a speeding bullet.
It was like thousands of tiny burning needles, almost like an electric shock. It's far worse than any other jelly sting I'd ever felt. And I experienced an extreme amount of pain.
As the venom seeps into her bloodstream, it attacks the cells that carry oxygen. It wreaks havoc on Angel's cardiovascular system.
I felt very disoriented, anxious. I was exhausted.
For 15 long minutes, Angel struggles to make it back to shore.
I was having trouble breathing and wheezing.
She barely makes it out of the water alive.
And the next thing I knew, I was in an ambulance.
In recent years, the shallows of Waikiki Beach have become a treacherous minefield. October 30th, 2010.
There is danger lurking. More than 200 people were treated for stings in the waters off of Waikiki.
Since the 1980s, the invaders have been coming every month, just days after the full moon, to spawn in the shallow water.
Those stings can be very, very nasty.
Nowhere else in the world is the number of box jelly stings higher. "13 years after her painful attack, Dr. Angel Yanagihara is a biochemist at the University of Hawaii. She has dedicated her career to unlocking the box jelly's venomous secrets.
For over 40 years, people have been trying to figure out what makes up this venom, why it's so potent, and how we could make an antidote.
After years of trial and error, she's closing in on the magic bullet. It's the peak of the box jelly's monthly influx. To test her cure, Angel wants to find the most potent box jellies out there. The ones that haven't been weakened by their swim to shore.
It definitely is a little outrageous to presume that we could find a tiny little jellyfish in 4 square miles of ocean.
And there's danger at every turn.
We're talking about being offshore in 40 to 200 feet of water at night. There's sharks. So this isn't the kind of thing one does lightly.
Watch your computer, and I'll just tap you on the shoulder if we're, because you're going to be looking for the jellies more so, and I'll be watching the depth and stuff.
The divers make sure they're completely covered to avoid any stings. These suits are made from a thick, strong material that box jellies can't penetrate. Angel dives down to the ocean floor, hoping to sneak up on a box jelly. But they are more elusive than she expected. The minutes go by. With the clock ticking, she still hasn't seen a single animal. But then, with the ocean surface in sight, she sees a familiar shape, and they are on the move.
Suddenly we were in the midst of a whole group of jellies swimming towards the shore, more than a kilometer offshore. It was really remarkable. It was completely unexpected.
Most think jellyfish are mindless blobs, drifting about at the whim of the ocean's currents. But these box jellies can jet through the water, and they're headed toward the lights of Waikiki Beach. Angel collects some of them for further tests in the lab.
It made us wonder, do the eyes play a role in their swimming behavior?
While most jellyfish are blind, box jellies have evolved with 4 eye clusters, one at each corner of their cube-shaped body. The clusters are largely comprised of primitive cells for detecting light and dark, but at the center of each is a single eye, as complex as our own.
A pupil, an iris, a cornea, a lens, and a retina. This is astonishing.
Which they can rotate to see in any direction.
It doesn't make sense. What can you do with such a complex eye without a brain?
Angel's designed an experiment to find out. And the results are shocking.
It's pretty impressive.
It seems the enemy may be smarter than anyone ever suspected. Waikiki Beach, Hawaii. Ground zero for a box jellyfish invasion like no other. But what lures these brainless stingers to the shore? Scientists theorize they may be drawn to the bright lights. In her lab, Dr. Angel Yanagihara puts the box jelly's vision to the test. First, she replaces the ambient light with a barely visible red glow.
That's really bizarre. Completely stopped any activity. We never see that in the white light.
Right.
A primitive life form capable of adapting its behavior to the light? It doesn't make sense. Generally, the ability to rest is attributed only to creatures with some kind of brain capacity. But these animals don't have a brain. Now, Angel tests the box jelly's vision against a simple obstacle course.
Here they come. Well, ran right straight into it. Another collision behind.
It's not like anything they would encounter in the natural world. And they're clearly having trouble. But when Angel swaps the clear tubes for opaque ones, it's a completely different story.
You see how it slowed down and is avoiding the obstacle altogether? This one came in, almost grazed it, and then made a last-minute navigational correction. It's pretty impressive. So they seem to be able to perceive the obstacle and then alter their body pattern so they can swim around it.
But something else is happening in the tank. Something that defies everything we thought we knew about jellyfish.
We've been watching them now for about 10 minutes, and what's really interesting to me is, are they learning this obstacle course?
Not only are they making decisions, they're quickly improving their skills.
They don't have a brain, they have a neural network. So how do they process that? How are they capable of this kind of remarkable behavior?
Is the box jellyfish a brain unto itself? Until we answer that question, there's simply no way to stop this deadly creature from storming our beaches. Around the globe, scientists desperately try to learn what makes jellyfish tick. Monterey Bay Aquarium in Central California. More than a tourist attraction, it's a cutting-edge research facility determined to unlock the secrets of the jellyfish. One mystery they have cracked is the art of breeding jellies on land.
It is amazing for how long jellyfish have been around, how little we know about them, their life cycles, what makes them reproduce.
Jellyfish reproduction is a bizarre process that blurs the lines between animal and plant. First, fertilized jellyfish eggs transform into microscopic larvae. These jellyfish larvae float through the water until they find a hard surface to cling to. Once grounded, they change into cup-shaped polyps, which then clone themselves over and over again, creating the seeds of a billion-strong army whose whereabouts are a complete mystery.
They say that we know more about outer space than the deep sea, and so the polyps are out there living somewhere on the ocean floor, and we don't know where most of them are.
And they can sit dormant for years, probably even decades, until the conditions are just right. Like something out of science fiction, the polyps begin to grow. They elongate and segment into a stack of baby jellyfish.
If we look closely, we can see them right here.
A pulsing brood of alien-looking life forms.
And then, one at a time, the baby jellyfish will release and swim away and grow up into adult medusae.
It's the birth of a new jellyfish swarm. And researchers here have discovered how to trigger this process at will.
One of the best ways is to change the temperature of the water.
Biologists theorize that global climate change may be contributing to the rise of the jellyfish. But there are other factors, too. Is this new world order the revenge of an angry sea? The Gulf of Mexico. May 19th, 2009. A remote control vehicle captures some shocking video 3,000 feet below the surface. A rare deep-sea jellyfish never before seen in these waters. With its paddle-like arms, the 20-foot-long Stygiomedusa gigantea clings to the base of an oil exploration platform. Seems there's no underwater landscape the jellies can't invade. Man-made structures in the Gulf of Mexico make for a perfect breeding ground. In 2000, the Gulf of Mexico is overrun by millions of Australian spotted jellyfish, devastating the fishing industry. Dr. Monty Graham has been following the rise of these jellyfish for over a decade.
So we're hovering over the Mississippi River at the mouth where it enters the Gulf of Mexico. It's an area where jellies have thrived for at least 20 years.
The Gulf is the perfect staging area for a jellyfish invasion because vast patches of the water have become virtual dead zones.
The Mississippi River is applying nitrogen that comes from farmlands, and this is causing low oxygen areas.
What happens first is the nitrogen runoff creates giant blooms of algae. Algae-eating bacteria then suck the oxygen from the water, leaving it inhospitable to most marine life, with one notable exception.
But jellies, because they're mostly water, have the ability to carry their oxygen within this layer of highly watery jelly material.
Back in his lab, Monty has designed an experiment to see how these dead zones affect the most basic life functions of fish versus jellyfish. His assistant prepares 2 tanks, one with low oxygen and one with a normal level.
All right, so the low oxygen is 1.2, the high oxygen is 8.7. So that is pretty much what we have when the oxygen is low in the Gulf here. So it's pretty reflective, and you can already see that the jellies are doing pretty well in the low oxygen and the high oxygen. So both of the fish, when they go in, look relatively happy. Jellyfish look good. Everybody's swimming.
But soon, the fish in low oxygen isn't faring so well. It can't leave like it might in the Gulf, so it grows still, trying to conserve energy.
You can already kind of see that this fish is behaving a little bit differently than this fish over here. Every now and then he looks like he's taking a little more gulps and trying to ventilate his gills.
The jellyfish seems completely unaffected by the lack of oxygen as the fish slowly suffocates.
The jellyfish on both sides seem to be about the same. So advantage jellyfish and disadvantage fish.
Monty's assistant rescues the fish in the low oxygen tank before it dies.
Yeah, he's gonna be happy now.
Nature doesn't show that same kind of mercy. Year-round, Monty's team tracks jellyfish in the northern Gulf of Mexico. It's a threat unseen from the surface. But enter the world below, and the magnitude of the onslaught is revealed. Every spring and summer, enormous swarms of moon jellies bloom here before spreading into ecosystems that are no longer hospitable to other life forms. It's just a thin layer of jellyfish, but it can extend for hundreds of miles.
I think we know what the magnitude of the problem is, that the oceans are sick, and the symptom of the oceans being sick include an overabundance of jellyfish, more frequent blooms, larger blooms.
From the South Pacific Seas to the northern Atlantic Ocean, there are some 150 dead zones in the world, and their number is growing. From these human-induced breeding grounds, hungry jellyfish by the billions come out, looking for food and moving in on our own turf. The future of our fishing industry is in peril. And in several hotspots around the globe, this plight is a frightening vision of things to come. The rise of the jellyfish has put the world's fishing industry in peril. And no one is facing a more devastating battle than the fishermen of Southeast Asia. Their nets are full, but not with fish. These are nomuras, the most colossal jellyfish species on the planet, weighing as much as 450 pounds. For the past 10 years, they've been swarming the region by the billions. Jellyfish researcher Dr. Monty Graham has traveled halfway around the world to see these giants in the flesh. The East China Sea at the tip of the Korean Peninsula, Monty is headed straight into the enemy's tentacles. By his side, a team of Korean scientists. Every day, these fishermen haul in their nets, not knowing what they'll find inside. There are days when they can still bring in a decent haul, unharmed by the Nomura venom. But today is not one of those days. The swarms are already here.
You can see a few fish that are flopping around and alive, but it's been sitting there so long, and the rest of these are sitting there so long.
Anything dead or dying has likely been tainted with Nomura venom or suffocated under their weight. Hundreds of fish, enough to feed an entire village, completely gone to waste.
A small fraction of the fish are even useful to them, so it's really a lot of effort for them to come out here and fish and then have this happen. I've seen pictures where it's really bad and the devastation on the fisherman's face, but to actually sit here and you can guess how long it would take for them to actually go through the fish without the jellyfish, and this is, wow.
The crew desperately hacks at the Nomuras to get to the surviving fish. Scientists theorize that overfishing and pollution in this region have led to this population explosion. But to be sure, they need to know more about Nomura reproduction.
So we have to go down
get a jellyfish, bring it back, get the eggs or the sperm off of it, and make our own jellyfish babies in the lab. Hopefully this will help us understand what makes this population boom.
Monty is determined to collect a Nomura for his research. But it's a challenging mission.
See how the viz is? I'll try to pick a spot.
He has to get close enough to bag one of these behemoths while avoiding its 4-foot stinging tentacles. And he has to do it in overcrowded waters with poor visibility.
Way bigger underwater.
Nomura venom isn't as toxic as a box jelly's, but it's still very painful and has been known to cause a dangerous buildup of fluid inside a victim's lungs.
You would never expect this looking down into the water. It's really an impressive sight.
Some have died after surprise encounters with these massive creatures.
Let's get a bigger specimen back and pull one of these out of the water. Let's try this one over here. It's hard to tell, but I would think that this one weighs at least 100 pounds. Okay, let's try again. We need to do it from the top and pull the bag over its mouth. Okay, we got this one.
Out of its domain, the great jelly melts into a watery pile of goo. But its stinging tentacles are still armed and dangerous.
This is the part that hurts.
Yes.
Gloves are needed to protect her against the nasty stings.
Yes, I'm gonna.
Do you know if this is a male or a female just from looking at it?
Oh, yes, maybe male.
It's male
Yeah.
because of the very
White
light color.
Yeah.
They collect sperm for breeding Nomura polyps back in the lab. It's scientists' best hope for figuring out what's triggering the rise of these giants.
The gel layer here, and let's pull it up. What always fascinates me about jellies is that they are essentially one cell layer thick on these two surfaces. And this is about 96% water.
96%.
So these guys can get huge with very little energy.
Yeah.
And with this ecosystem's food chain already depleted from overfishing, there's nothing stopping these giants from squeezing out all other life forms entirely.
Nomura's jellyfish is the poster child for what might be happening in our oceans when we do the things that we do as humans that change the system in a way that favors jellies.
In fact, it might already be too late. Off the California coast, scientists discovered that the jellyfish invasion is not limited to the world's coastal waters. They're taking over the open ocean as well. California's Monterey Bay is a national treasure with one of the world's most diverse ecosystems. But this marine sanctuary might soon be overrun with gelatinous swarms. A journey to the depths of the Pacific Ocean offers a rare glimpse into the jelly's domain and foretells of terrifying things to come. Every week, these scientists send a robotic submarine down to one of the deepest underwater canyons in the continental U.S., more than 2 miles down. The sub beams back incredible images from this alien environment. It's one of the harshest places on the planet. There's barely any food. The water pressure in these icy, dark depths is so intense, it could kill a man in seconds. And still, the jellyfish are thriving. Dr. Bruce Robeson and his team have monitored these regions for the past 15 years.
The water here is getting warmer. The oxygen content of the water off the California coast is decreasing. We've seen animals disappearing almost entirely and others replacing them.
Add to that the effects of overfishing and the depletion of the big, slow-growing species at the top of the food chain. And jellyfish are the winners in the battle for domination.
A gelatinous animal grows fast, reproduces quickly, and can fill that niche before the species that's been removed has a chance to recover.
It seems we've created a perfect storm. And many scientists believe we might just have to adapt to this new jelly-filled world.
50 years, 100 years, you might be eating the protein that originated from a jellyfish in order to survive as a society.
But there is some hope for the future. Dr. Angel Yanagihara may have finally found a blocker to the perilous box jelly sting. And she believes this ancient creature may actually hold the key to some modern medical innovations.
You have an ancient collagen that we could potentially use in clinically relevant ways to design better smart band-aids, wound healing agents. So we have an animal that can, hurt us and get our attention and be a nuisance, but also could bring us a whole new tool set that can help us.
After all, jellyfish have had 600 million years to perfect their survival skills.
Our particular life form can only exist within pretty finely delimited conditions, whereas this ancient life form is far more robust and resilient.
They were one of the first creatures to freely roam the planet. They have survived catastrophic changes that wiped out almost all life on Earth. They thrive in the most extreme environments, from the icy waters of the Arctic to the heat of toxic ocean vents. And they're not going away anytime soon.
I think it's crazy. I've never seen anything like this.
The invasion is upon us. And this is only the beginning. The coastal waters near Key West, Florida.
Open the dive surface valve. Breathe in through your mouth and out through your nose.
Combat divers with the U.S. Special Forces are heading out on a routine training dive.
4 more seconds.
It's an exercise these soldiers have completed many times before.
Prepare to enter the water.
Ready, set, go.
But on this night, things will go terribly wrong. There's something deadly lurking in the deep.
So I'm just going to talk to you. My partner and I were swimming into the beach. Once we got roughly 500 meters from the shore is when I felt the sting. I kind of stopped and swept at it. We surfaced.
You all right, dude?
No. I told my partner.
They call it Irukandji syndrome.
Excruciating, crushing, back-breaking pain.
Opiates at maximum doses are not enough.
Probably 10 to 15 minutes after the initial sting. And that's when the pain really started to hit.
Let's get an IV on. And let's go ahead and do Valium and fentanyl. Let's go ahead and control the symptoms.
Survivors say it's one of the most excruciating experiences a human can endure.
4 liter wide open. Is it any better after the fentanyl and the Valium? Has it backed off a little? No?
I don't remember much. Everything's kind of fuzzy. I remember in incredible amounts of pain.
Captain Jason Smith, I'm the diving medical officer here. The classic presentation is low back pain, then shortly radiates to the abdomen, sometimes can go down into the groin itself, followed by agitation.
You know, just to keep an eye on me, because I was starting to feel a little off. Once we got to shore, I started losing control of my own body.
What's going on? Talk to me.
Sergeant First Class William C. Plagg, Jr.
Hey, talk to me. What happened? Where does it hurt?
When I arrived, he started having difficulty breathing.
It's starting to hurt everywhere, Dive Suit. My arms and legs.
It was definitely not a dive injury.
I started to panic. I didn't know what was going on with me.
Can you breathe?
It was something that was indicative of dangerous marine life.
Hey, get me the ambulance over here. Talk to me. Where are the cramps at?
Transport him back to the aid station very quickly.
Breathe normally.
Medics have seen this dangerous cluster of symptoms before. It's normally associated with jellyfish encounters thousands of miles away in Australian waters. The world as we know it is under siege. The perpetrators, an army of bloodless, boneless phantoms from the deep, billions strong and growing. They're wreaking havoc on our infrastructure. Destroying our food supply. And turning our beaches into battle zones.
They were all over the place.
She was stung on her chest, her back, her stomach, her face.